Hello and welcome to Stories and Lessons. My name is Amy Ebert and I'm your host for today's podcast. Welcome back to this series, All Things Storytelling. Have you ever felt like you're working harder and harder but not getting anywhere? Like no matter how many hours you put in, you're stuck in the 1993 version of Groundhog Day? Well, you're not alone. I know someone who was exactly in your shoes. Let's call him John to protect the innocent. John spent years building what he thought was a business, right? Something that could withstand the test of time. But in reality, he wasn't building what some might call a brand with a story at all. He was just building himself a job. Can you relate? In today's episode, I'm going to break down why your brand story is one of the most important things you can create. Not just for your business, but for your entire life. And by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly why your story matters and how it can completely transform the way you show up. So let me tell you about John. He was a go-getter, constantly hustling and grinding, building what he thought was a thriving business. But one day, someone asked him, "What's your brand story, John?" And John had nothing to say. Long story short, he realized he wasn't building a brand. He had been building a job. Here's the thing. If you're only focused on the daily grind, if you're not thinking long-term about the story your brand is telling, you're going to stay stuck in that mundane cycle. Just like John, you're trading hours for dollars, living in the now without creating a foundation for the future. The other day I heard Alex Hormozi say, if the brand's right, everything else will follow. And that's because a strong brand is more than just a logo or a tagline. It's the story that connects everything you do. It's the reason people come back to you and the reason they trust you, the reason they choose you over the competition. John's wake-up call came when he realized his business was completely dependent on him showing up every day. He had no room for growth, no freedom, no real identity outside of the work he was doing. He was the bottleneck. He was hustling for survival, really, not thriving with a purpose. Without a brand story, all he had was a job that required his constant presence. If he wasn't there, neither was his business. But once John started crafting his brand story, figuring out who he was, what he stood for, and what made him different, that's when everything shifted. He realized that a brand story gives your business a life of its own. It's something people can connect to, even when you're not physically there. Does that make sense? The good news is John's story didn't stop there. The more he leaned into his brand story, the more opportunities opened up. And there's Cleo. That's my cat for those of you on audio. She just came in the room. And I'm going to tell you exactly how that happened in just a bit. But first, if you're ready to start uncovering your brand story, head over to 10xoncamera.com. We're crafting a super fun quiz right now to help you reveal your on-camera personality, and you won't want to miss it when it's available. So head over to 10xoncamera.com and we will get you on the list. So we'll send you information so you don't miss out on our insightful, fun on-camera personality quiz. Here's why your brand story is so powerful. It's how you attract the right people, the ones who resonate with your values and your messaging. When John was just working a job, he was taking any client who would pay. It was merely transactional. There was no filtering, no alignment with his values, and of course, it led to burnout. But once he got clear on his story, he started attracting clients who actually got him. You know what I mean? People who shared his values, people who wanted to work with him. Because of his story, not just because of the service he provided, he didn't have to hustle to convince them. They were already on board before they even met him. His client relationships improved. He looked forward to doing the work he's doing. And he could raise his prices because now he could stand tall, affirming his value-driven brand story with purpose. Your brand story is the magnet that pulls in your ideal audience. It tells them, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and this is who I like to be. Now that's a powerful story. Without it, you're just another business offering services, but with it, you're something more. You're a brand people know, like, and trust. John's story doesn't end there. Once he started owning his brand story, not only did he attract the right clients, but bonus, he also found himself connecting with other value-aligned businesses and brands. Did somebody say leverage? Suddenly, partnerships and collaborations started practically falling into his lap because he wasn't just another service provider. He had a clear message, a story that resonated. Think of it this way. Your brand story is your why. It's what people remember about you. It's what makes you memorable, whether you're speaking to a client or partnering with someone in your industry, and without it, your business is just noise in a crowded marketplace. John went from running on fumes to running a brand that has its own identity, one that spoke for itself, and the result, his business grew in ways he couldn't have imagined before. But of course, none of that would have been possible if he hadn't taken the time to build his brand story. You see? Let's talk about why most of us hesitate to craft our brand story. It's fear. Fear of showing up. Fear of being seen. Look, we've all experienced sliding scale levels of trauma, disappointment, failure, and over time we put on armor to protect ourselves. But that armor can keep us from connecting with others authentically as well. Can it? The thing is, your brand story is about you. It's about letting down that armor and showing the world who you truly are. It's about freedom. Think about Brené Brown's work on vulnerability, or Theodore Roosevelt's man in the arena quote. Showing up, being seen, letting yourself be vulnerable, and not the shy, timid, sad, vulnerable, the strong, courageous, compelling, honest, vulnerable. That's what makes your brand story powerful. It's not just about the wins. It's about the struggles too, the heartaches, the obstacles, overcoming the obstacles, because that's what people connect with. Okay, so here's the quote, Theodore Roosevelt's quote. You ready? It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there's no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. That's a wake-up call for some and a reminder for others, right? If you're ready to step into the arena and start telling your brand story, we're here to help. Head over to 10xoncamera.com so you don't miss out on this special quiz we're putting together for you. That's going to help you uncover your on-camera personality. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. All right, so back to John. He went from building a job to building a brand, and his story is the reason for his success. But here's the thing. You have a brand story too. Maybe you've just been afraid to tell it. Maybe you've been stuck in the day-to-day grind, thinking that building a brand is for someone else, or dialing in your brand even. You're like, it's good enough. But I'm here to tell you, your brand story is what will set you free. It's what will make your business scalable, memorable, and something people can't ignore. And something people not only can't ignore, but can't get enough of. So what are you waiting for? Head to 10xoncamera.com, fill out a quick form, and we'll send you the quiz when it's ready. Should be soon. Depending on when you see this, it might already be ready. By the time you see this, it could be ready. Okay? So, what have you got to lose? It's fun, it's insightful, and it's going to help you start crafting the brand story that will change everything. Don't miss out. This is your chance to step into the arena and start telling your story. Having said that, thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you got value from what we've provided, why not spread the love by sharing this episode with someone? Subscribe to or follow the show so you never miss an episode, and give us a positive 5-star review or a thumbs up, depending on which platform you're currently on. For more stories and lessons, check out some of my other episodes in the series. Thank you for showing up, and be well.